Hello and welcome to ACWS's Outcome Tracker training videos. On this video, I'm going to walk you through form actions. Form actions are something you can use to help you increase data fidelity on your forms and to increase accurate data entry. And you can do that by using form actions to hide certain questions, show certain questions, make fields mandatory, make them optional, and we're going to walk through how to do all that today. When you log into Outcome Tracker, the first thing you want to do is go to Activities. Then you want to find the activity that you are making a form for. For this one, I'm using this one. When you log in, you'll see that there is a tab called Forms along the top here. That's where we want to go. And if you're following along in the videos, then you would have already created the form for your activity. So click on that, and you'll see along the side here there's a option for form actions. That's what we want. Right now I don't have any form actions in the form. I'm going to build them along with you so that you can see exactly what form actions do. So this is the form that I created for this activity. I already put my form into a tab, and a later video we will discuss exactly how to do that. But for reference, I want to show you exactly what form actions are going to do. So I've opened my form. There's two layers to building a form action. There's the first layer when you have usually either when then else or when then. And then there's the second layer when you'll have what the form action actually does, which are things like show field, hide a field, make field optional, make field read only, things like that. On the first sort of layer, the options you're going to use most often are when then else, and when then. Probably you won't use any other ones on the first layer, but you could. So I'm going to select when then else. I'm going to look at my form real quick, and let's say it doesn't make sense for this what would help question to show up if people select true on here. So when true is selected on here, that the client felt understood, then we want to hide this. So when the list expression in client felt heard and understood equals true, then we want to hide the field. We want to hide a field. The field is what would help. And this is, we can hide more fields based on this. So if there were a few things that we wanted to happen when this equals true, we could do that here. We only want this one thing. Otherwise, we want to show the field. What would help? So basically what we're saying is when the client felt heard and understood equals true, hide the field what would help. Otherwise, when this field equals anything other than true, show the field what would help, and save. And go back to the form, refresh. Set it for pretty false, mostly true or false, and when we go to true, it hides it. Let's say we want to show a warning on this field. Number of children the client has. It's often the case in your forms that you might have a field that requires a number. If that number is 0, the people putting in your data might just leave it blank, but oftentimes you don't want that to happen. Often you want them to put in, actually physically put in a 0, because that could affect data fidelity if they leave it blank instead of putting in a 0. So we want when then else again. Let me explain for a brief second what these mean. So a numeric expression is what we want for this one because this is a number box. A text expression is a text box. A list expression was the first one because it's a drop-down list, and a multi-select expression is a multi-select drop-down list. And group allows you to group more than one of these together. Probably won't use group too often. You'll probably stick to these four, but we want a numeric expression for this one. And this is a field we want. And this will give you the list of all the numeric fields. And we want number of children the client has. When the number of children the client has is empty, we want to show a warning on a field. Let me explain quickly the difference between show warning and show warning on field, and show error on field. They're both the same. When you show a warning, it shows up on the top of the form. So you can show a warning on the top of the form based on a value on one of the form entries, or you can show it on the field. When you show a warning on the field, it'll show up on the field instead of on the top. So we want to show warning on the field. And we want the field number of children the client has. And we want the warning to be a text box. When you select show warning on field, you'll probably almost always select text. And we want to write otherwise. We want to clear warning from the field. What would happen? Basically, we're saying when the number of children the client has is empty, show the warning on that field if the client has no children, etc., etc. Otherwise, clear that same warning. Save. Refresh. So we see that the warning doesn't show up, but if we take number out, it does. Excellent. Let's say we want to further increase data fidelity by making this a mandatory question. It would be impossible for them to leave it blank. This is an instance where we don't really need the when then else functioning. We can just make a field require a field, and then select the field. Select the field number of children the client has. What this does is prevent you from saving the form if that question is empty. So if we take this out and try to save, it does not let us. A word of warning about making fields required on Outcome Tracker. The more often you do it, the more you increase the chance that data just simply won't get entered into Outcome Tracker. So you want to use making fields required as conservatively as possible. We find that using warnings on fields and errors on fields will often achieve the same means without making them required. Let's say that we want to hide this question when this question equals 0, because it doesn't make sense for them to answer this question if the client has no children. So we want to when then else again. So when the numeric expression in the field number of children the client has equals the number 0, we want to hide a field. And that field is age of first child. Otherwise, show a field, age of first child. So basically what we're doing is when the number field number of children the client has equals the number 0, we want to hide the field age of first child. Otherwise, we want to show the field age of first child. So when it equals more than 0, I want to save that. Refresh. So if we put this at 0, it hides that question, which is good. Now I'm going to show you the difference between a show warning on the field and a show error on the field. So this is a warning. I'm going to change this from show warning on field to show error so we can see the difference. Show error on field. Number of children the client has. We want that to be a text. I'm just going to paste the same exact thing in there. Otherwise, clear error from field. Number of children the client has. Let's save that. That's the difference between a warning and an error. An error is a bit more urgent than a warning, so you can see the difference between the two. So we walked through when then else to show a warning on fields, and we talked about the difference between warnings on fields and just warnings, and errors too. So we cleared errors and warnings. We required a field. Making a field read only and read write is the same process as requiring a field. It's a little different. We walked through how to show and hide a field. The rest of these are probably form actions that you won't use too often, but those are there. If you have any questions about them, you can always ask us. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go through them, but we walked through all of these, with the exception of when then, which I'm going to explain right now. So when then is just like when then else, except there's no else. There's no otherwise perform the following. So for instance, if I do the same thing I did above, when the numeric expression in the field number of children the client has equals the number 0, perform the following. Hide field, age of first child. So the difference here is that with this one, if the number in this field ever doesn't equal 0, it will show this field again. And with this one, it won't. If the number of client the children has equals 0, it will hide the field, and then it won't show it again. So you usually want to use when, then, else. You can have your requirement when, then perform the other thing, and else you almost always want to undo that thing if the conditions in the first when aren't met. So just a little tip, there might be instances when then is what you want to use if you want a thing to happen when certain conditions are met, but you don't ever want that thing undone, then you would use when then, but most often you will probably use when then else. And that is how you use form actions in Outcome Tracker. Thank you for using ACWS's Outcome Tracker training videos.